Hey, what's going on, guys? Mark here with a new edition of Weaponized Truth. I know it's been a long time since I've made any videos, but this is a subject that I've touched on over here at my channel before, and I've noticed some things lately that made me realize that I need to touch base on this subject again. Now, I will say the bulk of this video is going to be about the new Black Mirror Bandersnatch movie. I just saw it, or sort of. I'll explain. I just want to let you know that if you have not seen Bandersnatch, which you definitely should see, you might not want to watch this video because there definitely will be some spoilers involved. But the main thing that I want to touch upon today is a lot of this original content movies that Netflix is creating, which they've already said they've already planned to spend like $200 million on more movies next year. Now, I hadn't really had a chance to really get into a lot of the Netflix original movies too much, but I started watching them recently, and boy, oh boy, was I in for a surprise. Now, I'm going to let you know, for you people who are simply here about the Bandersnatch movie, which I will get to. I'm just going to make it known that I believe for a long time um, that Netflix is some kind of social engineering project. It has a lot of really fucked up and creepy and dark original content. Don't get me wrong, they do have some original content shows, even movies that are really good, and they actually have some original content stuff that's really, really dark and twisted and, let's be honest, kind of fucked up. And I've already pointed out some of the crazy things that I've seen in some of the Netflix original content before that just made me think that they were a social engineering project. And we all know, they started doing this crazy stuff like, Dear White People and 13 Reasons Why, and all this other stuff. Now, for those of us who are familiar uh, with, okay, let's call it conspiracy theories, even though it's more factual than a lot of people like to believe. Let's go talk about some of the news from the past several years. A lot of these big incidents of terrorist attacks and other such things, a lot of these things that you'll hear about on the news for weeks and weeks, usually at some point, somehow, you can go on the internet and you can find references to events being talked about before they even actually happened. There's some kind of crazy satanic stuff going on in this world, y'all, and a lot of times you will see for yourself, if you really bother to look into it, that these things are actually planned, and they actually have, it's almost like it's a rule. Like when something really big and fucked up happens, they have to tell us in advance, or they just like to do it because they know they can get away with it. I mean, come on, we know half our government is corrupt, and none of those people are probably ever going to go to jail. Yeah, rich people make the rules, don't they, y'all? So they have a lot of crazy, crazy stuff around here along the lines of that conspiracy shit. As we know, as they started putting Wormwood on there, and that kind of raised a lot of eyebrows and a lot of these documentaries about MK Ultra and so on and so forth. Well, I started watching some of these movies, y'all, and now I'm going to get to Bandersnatch, but let me talk about some of these real quick. Now, the first one is just kind of the first one that really kind of was starting to get there, but it's like they're slowly we're inching into getting more and more along into their big conspiracy theft. But in this thing here, some kind of crazy mystery thing happened and is wiping out the planet, and is some kind of apocalyptic, crazy, earthquake event that's basically messed up the whole country. that's going on in this apocalypse type Netflix original movie right here. And of course, there's some kind of eerie, unexplained thing going on in this movie which they don't bother ever to explain. Then, of course, we've got extinction. And once again, we go back to this how we always find about these big events being talked about before they actually happen. And that's what's going on in this movie right here. Where, spoiler alert, a little bit, this normal guy is having dreams that seem super real about an alien invasion that happens. And everybody thinks he's crazy and keeps sending him to the shrink until lo and behold, a couple of weeks go by and an actual alien invasion happens. So this is a big movie talking about the big alien invasion that's going to wipe out the planet right here. And also with the foreshadowing that we see in regular events all the time, like a lot of these terrorist shootings and stuff like that, you can always find events where they're talked about the details of the stuff that happened on the internet before the date of the actual event. Yeah, it sounds messed up if you're not into this stuff, but yeah, this stuff really happens. So then we get over here to Bird Box. This one is pretty interesting. Now, what's interesting about this one is this is based off a book, and the guy who actually wrote this really doesn't have any idea what the hell it is that he tapped into. He had a totally different idea about what he was trying to write about if you go and research this when he wrote this book. But anyways, what this is about, and we all know that there's government agencies all over the world that are trying to figure this stuff out. This is a movie where there's some kind of creatures or presence or something outside, and whenever people see it, they just kill themselves. And so basically, unless you make yourself blind, eventually you're going to see these things and you're going to end up killing yourself. And then, of course, not only that, but there's a group of people that don't seem to be affected by these things that are walking around and forcing the people who aren't looking to go and look, so they'll go ahead and kill themselves. And now, if you know anything about any of these mind control projects and HARP and these kind of things that they have going on, this is real research that's been going on by our military and other people's military for a long time. And it's essentially what they put in this movie, and it's super freaking creepy. And what's really creepy is there's actually people out there trying to figure out to do exactly the kind of stuff that's in this movie. Remember, y'all, this stuff on Netflix, movies, and TV programs, they call it programming for a reason. But I'm going to get to that more when I get to Bandersnatch. Now, over here, this movie actually straight up dives into United Nations population control. This woman, who's right here, is like the head of the United Nations or something in this movie, or she's something like that. She's trying to go for parliament, I guess, or something like that. But she's created the Child Allocation Bureau. And she has made it to where families are only allowed to have one child in order to curb the population of the planet. Now, spoiler alert for this show. If you don't want to hear about this, you may want to fast forward about 20 seconds till you see the next picture. But it turned what they were doing in this movie is if you had more than one child, then they would take the extra children and they were going to freeze them in these cryogenic chambers. You know, like they did with Walt Disney and some of these super rich people. Of course, come to turn out by the end of the movie, they weren't actually freezing these kids, they were actually just incinerating them. And what's really interesting, and I want to point this out to y'all, because this is important. See this woman right here? Well, she looks very similar to this woman right here. You see how similar these two women look with the short hair and the facial features and the nose? Well, this woman right here, this is the woman in the movie. This is a real woman. This is Christiana Figueres. Now you might be saying, well, what the hell does Christiana Figueres have to do with Netflix? Well, look at this. As you can see right here, Christiana Figueres is a Costa Rican diplomat with 35 years of experience in high-level national and international policy with multilateral negotiations. She was appointed the Executive Secretary of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. So you know the big Paris Agreement that everybody signed up for, which is a total sham. It's a total and complete sham, which is why we got pulled out of it ourselves, and some of the other countries did too. Well, this woman right here, Christiana Figueres, was pretty much considered the architect of creating this Paris Climate Agreement. Now, if you go on YouTube and you watch Christiana Figueres videos speaking on behalf of the United Nations, she goes around and says that we need to decrease the population of the planet 80 to 90% right now to save it. This is what's really going on in our world, people. And Netflix is making movies about all of it. So, we get over here to Bandersnatch. Black Mirror, you know, it's the crazy sci-fi creepy thing they've had their episodes of for a long time. Well, they turned it into a movie about this game called Bandersnatch, which is in an earlier episode of Black Mirror. Bandersnatch is actually a character in an old book, Through the Looking Glass, which is noteworthy. And what's also noteworthy here is that this game, as you can see right here, is based in 1984. And of course, the book 1984 is about the future of technology and the police state and population control, etc., etc., etc. Now, basically, I've only seen one version of this movie, and the one thing that makes this movie absolutely amazing, and I've been wanting this for 10 years, is they actually took those Choose Your Own Adventure books and turned it into a movie. So as the movie plays, you can make different choices and different things will happen in the movie. And there's actually a whole bunch of different scenes that you can get. And there's actually 5 different endings in the movie depending on what choices that you make. And then there's even other parts at certain points in the movie where they tell you to go back. Now, so this is about a guy who is creating this Choose Your Own Adventure game, and he starts to feel like that he's not in control of his life, and lo and behold, it turns out that he's talking to a psychiatrist, and his computer is talking to him, telling him somebody that watching Netflix, some kind of streaming service that's in the future, is controlling his life. And he's basically looking at you while you're watching the movie, telling his psychiatrist that you're controlling his life. And his friend in the movie even goes on so far to talk about the video game Pac-Man. And this is pretty mind-blowing right here. Because he's talking about how we're all being controlled by TV and video games. And he says we're all living in Pac-Man's world. You know what PAC stands for? Program and control. He's program and control, man. The whole thing's a metaphor. All he can do is consume. He's pursued by the demons that are just in his own mind. And he continues on to say, all he does is sit there and consume all the pellets. And he's getting chased by demons, which are probably his own ghost. And even sometimes he can get the power pellets and he can eat the demons, but then the demons just come right back. And then, of course, you just keep going around in this maze that you can't get out of. And eventually, you can go out the side to escape. And what happens? You just pop right back in the other side of the screen, and you just keep running from the same ghost inside your own little box in this whole little construct, and you can never escape. This thing is mind-blowing. It is absolutely incredible. You absolutely have to see this. And I absolutely am going to be completely devastated if Choose Your Own Adventure is not the future of movies, y'all. Because I've been saying this for years and years and years. Why don't we have this? Why don't we have this? And now that we have it, I gotta tell y'all, it's fucking awesome. But make sure you watch this movie. When you hear the guy explaining the theory of the Pac-Man and the control and the different timelines and all this stuff, completely mind-blowing. But Netflix is on to every conspiracy theory of all the bad shit that's actually going on in this world or that might be going on in this world, and they're coming out and they're telling everybody. Is Netflix a social engineering project, like I've said all along? Is Netflix trying to prepare us for some really, really stuff that's 10 times crazier than what's going on in our government right now that's about to happen? Guess we'll have to wait and find out, but y'all know what I think. Netflix is social engineering, it's brainwashing, and they are trying to tell you something, and I advise you people who don't know about these type of conspiracies and stuff that I'm talking about, you might want to start paying attention to what's going on in this world. This is Mark from Weaponized Truth. You guys have a happy new year, and I will talk to y'all again sometime in the future.